Aujourd'hui, je vais parler a simple introduction to all those high-paying fields or jobs that most fire people seem to have. And is it necessary to get to fire? I'm going to talk about, okay? Hey, Zapak here. So obviously, my summary is a bit of an overreach. No, you don't need to have a high-paying job to get to financial independence, but does having one make one's life easier? Of course. Duh, right? I think that's why there's a lot of online jealousy from the rabble on these exclusive high-paying gigs or whatever. Or maybe I shouldn't say jealousy, but rather astonishment, right? Because let's get real. The median household income in the United States is $70,000 a year. So anything above that is, well, above average, right? But today's original question that I stole from Facebook that inspired this clip is as follows. I'm going to read the entire thing, even though it's definitely a bit rambling, even more than my own writing. Okay, so here it goes. Right? I've seen some insane incomes on this forum. If you're one of the members that makes 200K through 600K a year, what do you do? What did you major in? How much education do you have? How did you get into your field? How long does it take you to get to where you are today? What does it take? What advice do you have for those of us hoping to be in a position one day? Please, I'd love some wisdom. Sounds like the majority of the super high-paying jobs are in the tech industry. What tech degrees are most useful? How did you get into tech? Did you need a degree to get into your field? What was the job title of your first position? How far have you come in your tech role? That's the end of the question. Okay, this is a legit question and definitely fire-related, absolutely makes achieving fire much easier since there's no real cap on earning, but there is a floor on how much spending can be cut, as I've always said, right? So I'm going to boil this question down to the three components that I think is key, right, and address them all. Namely, is it only tech that makes significantly above average pay as a field? Does schooling and training matter? And finally, what are the traits that tend to lead to high pay, in my opinion, right? Anyway, if you're intrigued by what I might say, please subscribe, like, comment, share, and all that social media buzzwords, or whatever you want to do, okay? Because I'm rich enough for me, and I'll be great regardless. So let's get this out of the way. Is the OP right? Is it just tech that makes, like, in this mid six figures, right? I feel like I'm qualified to say, since that was where I plateaued in my earnings, right? The answer is of course not, right? It's just more common on internet forums because tech people can't shut up about themselves. But seriously, even people in the trades apparently can make 250K a year, right? Now, it's been a long time since I've worked a blue-collar job, so I'm going to refrain from commenting on that side of the fence, since that's not really my area of expertise, right? Instead, I'm just going to concentrate on the white-collar side of things, right? Even on the white-collar side, I would say that fields that are on average can produce the most regular high income would be, yes, tech, but also medical, legal, and finance, right? When I started, salaried work over 20 years ago, anybody who wanted to make the big money, right, just went to finance, right? That was the default. These days, the first choice default seems to be tech now, right? But none of these first choices are the only choices, right? The difference, of course, is knowing how long it takes for the high income in these fields to actually come into play. For example, in both legal and medical, well, you need more schooling and more schooling and more schooling to get to that high income as a doctor or a lawyer. That is compared to finance and tech, where the educational requirements just lower. Okay, a bachelor's is totally fine. I'm also ignoring, obviously, the whole entrepreneurial route, by the way, because that's an extreme end of, sure, you can be a college dropout and still become incredibly, make a lot of money if you invent something really groundbreaking, but the probability of that is, let's say, slim to say the best, right? So to address the second issue, right, is schooling educational credential a must-have to get these high-paying jobs? From personal experience, I admit I went to school for a STEM degree, right? I only have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering, and I made my money in tech. But this story seems straightforward. It's anything but, right? I was a crappy computer engineering student, and I knew it. My degree had almost nothing to do with how I got my first job. Heck, my very first paying job out of college wasn't even a white-collar job, right? And while I did make my fortune, so to speak, in a FAANG company much later on, I wouldn't say I was in the tech industry until I was at least 6 or 7 years into my working life. So is education a major and such things important? In a small degree, yes. You still definitely need a college degree just to get an interview for most of these companies. I'm sorry, if you want an office job, that's just a requirement. Maybe it's going to change in the future, but it hasn't yet, right? As to whether the major is important or whether, your training specifically is important, my bias is actually to say no, not within a field like tech that I'm most familiar with. Yes, these companies hire lots of super technical people, right? But that's not absolutely the only type of people that work and benefit from those same places, okay? In my experience, your school and major doesn't really matter much after your first maybe 2 years of college graduation. So in the long run, yes, the fields do matter for high paying, but people getting into them can go through them via a variety of paths, okay, of which straight up, educational and major accuracy is just one. So, if education isn't the end-all be-all of how to get that high-paying job, what then would I say is the most helpful, right? I have spent some time ruminating on this because I have hired and trained at least a classroom full of people in my corporate past. So even though I would say that data sample size is still pretty small, not statistically relevant, so my evidence is anecdotal, it is relevant in a snapshot in time kind of way, right? I mean, I think it's really a combination of personality traits like ambition, drive, and external factors like location and luck, right? I've met people who are very, very competent at their jobs, but are really, really passive, right? That's not gonna work, right? If you don't really, really want it, it's unlikely anybody would hand you a raise, right? Now, drive is probably the most critical thing one can control, because if you don't want to be the best at whatever it is that you do, well, other people are gonna notice that, so please have some pride in your work, all right? And as always, I never discount the factor of luck, right? Even my mention of location interacts with that aspect, right? We've also always heard people say things like, you can make your own luck, and in a way that is totally true. It is just much, much harder to find an employer that pays above market rate if you choose to stay in some sleepy town in the middle of nowhere compared to people who live in the very high cost, coastal bubbles, right? Those places are expensive for a reason. They're expensive because the massive potential earning that one can find in that area and in that area alone. Put yourself in a position to take advantage of luck, right? When it's presented to you. So really think about the meaning of that last sentence of what I just said, right? Absorb it, seriously. What does that mean to you? Think about it. So, in conclusion, is there some magical way to make that whole, wonderful $500,000 a year if you choose to obviously stay with a corporate employer, right? And the answer is actually no, absolutely not, right? If there was some easy to follow formula that everyone could follow, it'd become the average, right? And the goalpost of high paying would simply move. That's because every earning journey is highly personal, right? Some people can't or won't move out of their hometowns. Others just want to make a lot of money without being the best at what they do. And still others just want to dream about spending the high income instead of producing what's valuable to the society that they live in, right? And I'm describing, those are the majority of people, and they will fail at trying to achieve this goal, right? But how about the rest of you, okay? Isn't it exciting to figure out your own journey? Right, I can only give advice based on my experience has taught me. So tell me in the comments below, how are you guys making the big bucks? Cheers, I'll approach it.